Within this lecture, we're going to be examining errors that occur with pronoun case. When we are talking about pronoun case, there are several pronouns that have multiple forms. For instance, we have I and me, we and us, she and her, he and him, they and them, who and whom, as well as whoever and whomever. As you can see, each of these pairs of pronouns refer to the same idea. However, they are used in different instances. Each of these pairs of pronouns can be grouped into two broad categories. We have what are called nominative pronouns as well as objective pronouns. When trying to distinguish nominative pronouns from objective pronouns, we should note the occurrence of M in many of the objective pronouns. Later within this lecture, this will help us distinguish between nominative and objective. So, what is the difference between nominative and objective case? While there are some other aspects that nominative pronouns can be used for, most commonly nominative pronouns occur as the subjects of sentences, while objective case pronouns are typically any other word for a pronoun. Let's take a look at an example to illustrate this. I, me, went golfing yesterday afternoon. When we are examining this sentence, it's fairly easy to identify that we need the pronoun I. Instead of me went golfing this afternoon, we would say I went golfing this afternoon. While this example is relatively easy to identify the correct pronoun case, other sentences are more difficult. Let's take a look at the following example. Between you and I or me, my father thinks fishing is boring. When we are examining this sentence, it is a little more difficult to ascertain whether I or me is correct. Within this example, which would you choose? The correct answer for this sentence is me. Between you and me, my father thinks fishing is boring. So, how can we identify whether we are going to use nominative or objective case pronouns? In order to ascertain which is correct, there is a process that we should follow. First, we should ask ourselves, is the sentence a question? This will then send us on two separate paths. If the sentence is a question, we then have to ask ourselves, does the word to or with precede our choice of pronoun case? Once we answer this question, we will be sent on two different paths. If to or with does precede our choice, we will use whom. If the word to or with does not precede our choice, we will use who. Now, if we are dealing with a sentence that is not a question, we then need to identify the word immediately after our choice. If this word is a verb, we will use the nominative case. If it is not a verb, we will use the objective. Remember that many of the objective pronouns have the letter M within them. In order to familiarize ourselves with this process, let's take a look at our previous two examples. If we have the sentence, I/me went golfing yesterday afternoon, we first need to ask ourselves, is the sentence a question? Since this sentence is not a question, we then need to identify the word immediately after our choice of pronoun case. Within this example, the word immediately after is went. We then need to ask ourselves, is went a verb? Went is indeed a verb, therefore we will use nominative case. Between I and me, which is nominative. I would be nominative case because me has an M within it. Now let's take a look at the second example sentence we examined. Between you and I or me, my father thinks fishing is boring. As with the previous sentence, let's ask ourselves, is this a question? Since it is not a question, we then must identify the word immediately after our choice. Within this example, what is the word immediately after our choice? We should be able to identify my as the word after our choice. We then need to ask ourselves, is my a verb? Since my is not a verb, we will use objective case, me. Between you and me, my father thinks fishing is boring. Let's look at another example sentence. You should give the package to whomever or whoever is at the front desk. Let's walk through our process. Is this sentence a question? It is not a question. Next, let's identify the word immediately after our choice. Is the word immediately after our choice. Is a verb. Yes, is a verb. Therefore, we will use nominative case. Which of these is nominative case? Whomever or whoever? Since whomever has an M within it, that will be objective case. So we will need whoever for nominative case. You should give the package to whoever is at the front desk. Let's look at another example. To whom should I give the package? Is this sentence a question? Yes, it is a question. Does the word to or with precede our choice? Here we will see, yes, we have the word to immediately before our choice. So since we have to, we will use whom. To whom should I give the package? Let's look at another example. Whom is going to the dance with you? Is this sentence a question? Yes, it is. Does the word to or with precede our choice? No, it does not. Therefore, we will use who. Who is going to the dance with you? Now that we are more familiar with how to identify correct pronoun case, let's attempt to answer a few example questions without the process in front of us. The person whom was watching the tree line saw a herd of deer. Within this sentence, see if you can identify the correct pronoun case. We should note that we are dealing with a statement, and when we deal with statements, we look at the word immediately following our choice. Here we have the verb was watching. Since a verb immediately follows our choice, we will need nominative case. Which of these two pronouns is nominative case? Who would be nominative case. The person who is watching the tree line saw a herd of deer. Let's look at another example. Whom wants to play croquet on Monday? Within this sentence, try to identify the correct pronoun case. Here you'll note that we are dealing with a question, and when we deal with questions, we look for the words to and with before our choice. Since we do not have to or with, we will use who within this sentence. Who wants to play croquet on Monday? When we are looking at issues with pronoun case, we need to remember that there are two groups of pronouns. We have nominative case pronouns and objective case pronouns. Objective case pronouns typically have an M within them. Identifying this M can help us distinguish between nominative and objective within our sentences. In addition, it helps to remember that nominative case are typically used as the subjects of sentences, whereas objective case pronouns are typically used elsewhere. Before we conclude this lecture, let's look through a few more example sentences to help solidify the information we have learned within this lecture. After a difficult day at the office, Chandler and me decided to go for a run. Try to identify the correct pronoun case within this sentence. You'll note that we are dealing with a statement, and when we deal with statements, we look at the word immediately following our choice. Here, that word is decided. Since decided is a verb, we will select the nominative case pronouns. Is I or me nominative case? I would be nominative case. After a difficult day at the office, Chandler and I decided to go for a run. Let's look at another example. Between you and me, my mother's flower pot broke because the dog ran into it. Try to identify the correct pronoun within this sentence. Since we are dealing with a statement, we'll look at the word immediately following our choice, which is my. Since my is not a verb, we will use the objective case pronoun, me. Between you and me, my mother's flower pot broke because the dog ran into it. With whom shall I discuss the company's new dress code policies? Take a few seconds and try to identify the correct pronoun within this sentence. You'll see that this sentence is a question, and when we have questions, we will look for the words to or with before our choice. Within this example, we have with immediately preceding our choice. If we have with before our choice, will we select who or whom? We will select whom. With whom shall I discuss the company's new dress code policies? Volunteers donate their time and energy to whoever or whomever needs them most. Try to identify the correct pronoun within the sentence. Since we are dealing with a statement, we'll look at the word immediately following our choice, which is needs. Needs is a verb, therefore we will select the nominative case pronoun. Which of these two is nominative case? Whoever is nominative case. Volunteers donate their time and energy to whoever needs them most. Let's look at another example. Whomever ruined Roger's poster project will face serious consequences. Here we'll note that we're dealing with a statement, therefore we'll look at the word immediately following our choice, which is ruined. Since ruined is a verb, we will select the nominative case pronoun. Whoever ruined Roger's poster project will face serious consequences. Let's look at another example. To whom did he give the financial report? Take a few seconds and try to identify the correct pronoun for this sentence. You'll note that this example is a question, and therefore we will look for the words to or with immediately preceding our choice. We'll see that we have the word to. Since we have the word to, we will select who or whom. We will select whom. To whom did he give the financial report? Within this lecture, we have discussed pronoun case and how to select correctly between nominative and objective case pronouns when composing sentences.